to Nut Wars 6. And now to introduce your host, the winner of the poll from Nut Wars 5. With 44% of the votes, it's... Oh, hello, Utensil-Man, sir. How are you?
You look familiar. Didn't I already kill you in Nut Wars 3?
No, that was my twin brother you killed. Please don't do the same to me.
Your cowardliness and brown-nosing irritates me. If it wasn't for the fact I've got something to do, I'd kill you right now. But I guess I'll let you live. For the moment.
Yes, of course.
Shut up! Just do your job, okay? Welcome, fellow lost souls of the internet. Welcome to Nut Wars 6. I am your host, the Reaper of undeserving minds, Utensil-Man. And of course, I was going to win that poll. Who else would it be? Did you really expect for me to lose to a lazy asshole and some pirate stereotype? No, of course, it was gonna be me. And for those who don't know it yet, they will soon enough know exactly who I am. This year, we have the biggest Nut Wars in history! 8 nuts will go against each other. Not only that, the losers will be forgotten. They will be left by the wayside, with only one carrying on their legacy. The rest, finished, gone, destroyed! I think it's time to get to it, shall we? And introduce our cracker. Welcome, Masterath Gaming. Bloody get you, stupid fly! Come back here! I think I got him. Oh, come on, why is it me this time? What's up, Masterath Gaming? You seem to be in a bit of a bad mood. Why do you think I'm in a bad mood? But one day where we actually had rain, and a substantial amount of it, we've had sun for 9 weeks. Constantly. Well, you should have recorded maybe 2 weeks after, because it's a lot better here. But I prefer the fire and the brimstone, personally. Yeah, well, apart from that, it's been alright. The channel's going great at the moment. We're up to... hang on. When are we going to be releasing this? November. Ah! We're up to 1,000 subscribers. I hope. Yeah, just barely. But not only that, I'm still doing 1 video a day, which is a lot better than the channel that you're on right now. What, you do maybe 1 every week, 2 weeks if we're lucky, you know, because you can't think of anything else to do. You know, from a channel that's been around for 11 years, and you can't think of anything, while I am the Alpha Masterath channel. So sod you, basic Masterath channel. You seem to make a lot of effort in what you do. I can appreciate that. And what about your channel, Utensil-Man? How well does that do? What do I need with a channel? Just like a body of my own. I simply take a vessel for myself. I could run someone else's channel the same way. At least with this, I didn't spend over £1,000 just to get that channel decent. I don't need to do that. You get this for free. Look, do you want me to do the cracking for Nut Wars or not? I really can't be arsed either way. I think we should, because I'm dying for some destruction. And I don't die. It's time with our commentator, Masterath.
Hey, what's up?
To go to Nut Wars 6. Let's do this. I'm in a destructive mood today.
To make sure there is no controversy in this year's Nut Wars, we had a random draw. The blindfold is actually a tie that Anderson 932 gave me on his wedding day. It's high stakes tonight, 8 nuts, 1 winner. Only one will carry on their legacy. Who's gonna do it? Let's start Nut Wars 6. The random draw has given us some very interesting opponents. The 2 unseeded nuts, Nutbuster and the Chibi Little Nut, will battle in the first match, followed by a battle of the 2 most successful nuts in Nut Wars history. Nut Wars 2 winner, the Bulls Bollocks, takes on Nut Wars 3 winner, Nutheart, in a rematch from the Nut Wars 3 final. Then it's Nut Wars 5 champion, Roll the Nut 2 versus Nut Wars 1 champion, Lendon Nut. And lastly, Nut Wars 5 runner-up Nutshot takes on Nut Wars 4's champion, Fat Nut 5.
From Ottawa, Canada, Nutbuster.
One of the nuts that had to qualify for this year's Nut Wars, filling in the 7th or 8th spot in the series. The last time we saw it was in Nut Wars 4, where it made it to the semi-finals. Let's just hope that maybe it can bust out a better performance this year. As we mentioned, Nutbuster's last appearance was 2 years ago in Nut Wars 4, when it defeated Generic Nut in the first round before being beaten by reigning champions at the time, Nutheart, in the second round. To qualify for Nut Wars, we had 8 nuts competing for the chance for 2 spots in Nut Wars 6. Nutbuster was one of them, beating Walnut in the first round, and to qualify, they beat Nut Thunder to become a Nut Wars 6 participant.
From Cirencester, England, the Chibi Little Nut.
For the first time in 5 years, the Chibi Little Nut is here. Its only appearance was in the first ever Nut Wars series where it made it to the finals, and has not been seen since, at least until the qualifiers of this year. A small nut could be one to watch. Its first and only appearance was in the first Nut Wars, where it beat Fat Nut in the semi-finals before losing to Lendon Nut in the finals, making it the first ever runner-up in Nut Wars history. 5 years later, and it came back for the qualifiers, beating Nut Crack in the first round and then Nut Black in the second round to qualify for Nut Wars 6. After so many years away, how well is it going to do?
3, 2, 1, Cracktivate.
So the first match of the new Nut Wars series, and...
That's a tough one, that is. Ooh.
well, we're kicking off with a tough one, apparently.
God, that's really tough. There you go.
There's the crack right there, and who's through? Oh, and out goes the Chibi Little Nut in the first round. Chibi Little Nut eliminated in the first round by Nutbuster, who will go through to the semi-finals. It's time for our next match. A battle between the 2 best nuts in Nut Wars history. It's Nutheart versus the Bulls Bollocks. A rematch from the Nut Wars 3 Grand Final. What a crunch match this is going to be.
From Seville, Spain, and seeded number 3, the Bulls Bollocks.
Here is one of the most successful nuts in Nut Wars history. Has competed in 3 separate Nut Wars tournaments, winning his first in Nut Wars 2 and coming runner-up in Nut Wars 3. Also, one of only 2 nuts to win 5 consecutive Nut Wars matches. But his last time here didn't go very well as it was knocked out in the first round. Let's see how it did in previous competitions. The Bulls Bollocks was off to an amazing start in its debut in Nut Wars 2, beating Dumb Nuts in the first round, followed by a win against Mr. Nutty in the semi-finals, and beating Fat Nut's Revenge in the finals to win its first Nut Wars series. Defending the title in Nut Wars 3, it did pretty well, defeating Rockin' Nuts in the first round, followed by a win against Owl Nuts in the second round, only to come up short to the eventual Nut Wars 3 champions Nutheart. As seeded number 2 in Nut Wars 4, it was defeated in the first round against Rainbow Nuts. After 2 years away, can the Bulls Bollocks come back to win?
From Falkirk, Scotland, and seeded number 2, Nutheart.
The most successful nut in Nut Wars history, which probably makes it the favourite. The winner of Nut Wars 3 and runner-up of Nut Wars 4 has never failed to reach a Nut Wars semi-final. With 3 consecutive semi-finals under its belt and 6 victories altogether in Nut Wars, this nut has broken more records than any other nut. Let's see how Nutheart did it. Nutheart started out in Nut Wars 3 and was destined for great things, beating a disintegrated orange in the first round. A second round victory over Mini Nuts soon followed, and then upsetting reigning champions the Bulls Bollocks in the final, giving Nutheart its first Nut Wars championship. Seed 1 for Nut Wars 4, it did pretty well, beating Up the Nut in the first round. Its 5th consecutive victory came by beating Nutbuster in the semi-finals, equaling the Bulls Bollocks for most consecutive victories with 5. It could have broken the record, but eventual Nut Wars 4 champion Fat Nut the 4th stopped it dead in its tracks. Seeded 2 for Nut Wars 5, it beat Sloth Nut in the first round, giving it its 6th victory, breaking the Bulls Bollocks record, for it to finally be defeated by Nutshot in the semi-finals. 3 consecutive semi-finals for this nut. I'm excited to see how well it's going to do this year.
3, 2, 1, Cracktivate.
The 2 most successful nuts in Nut Wars going out of here. Oh, and there's the crack straight away. Who's out? Oh, the Bulls Bollocks has gone again. Nutheart has done it. That's 4 consecutive semi-final appearances for Nutheart. 4 in a row, a 7-2 record now as well. There's no doubt that Nutheart could go all the way once again. But speaking of nuts that can go all the way, it's time for our next match as seeded number 1 and current reigning champion Roller Nut 2 takes on the first ever Nut Wars champion, Seed 5, making his return, Lendon Nut. For the sake of all of us here at Nut Wars Roller Nut 2, please win.
From Las Vegas in America, and reigning champion, Roll the Nut 2.
The reigning champion, Nut Wars 5's winner, Roll the Nut 2. Its only other appearance was in Nut Wars 3 when it was defeated in the first round, but came back 2 years later to be on a tear, 3 wins in a row to win Nut Wars 5. Mostly helped by the fact that it is a very dense nut. And now let's see the fall and rise of the defending champion. Roll the Nut 2's first appearance was in Nut Wars 3, when it was defeated in easy, quick fashion by Owlnut. Embarrassed by its loss in Nut Wars 3, it came back in Nut Wars 5 with a much better, stronger nut, beating Nut Buddy in the first round, followed by a victory against Nutsferatu in the second round, and lastly the victory against Nutshot in the finals that has given it the title of Nut Wars champion.
From his own arse, and seeded number 5, Lendon Nut.
The undefeated first ever Nut Wars champion, back for the first time in 5 years, looking to win the championship that it never lost. It's bloody heavy as well. I had to get a forklift just to get it on the table. It's massive. Anyway, let's see how Lendon Nut became champion. Well, it was back in a time when there were only 4 competitors in Nut Wars, so we had an easy run. What a wuss. Anyway, it defeated Tough Nut in the first round and then beat the Chibi Little Nut in the finals to win. But then the most infamous moment happened, it getting crushed by a bottle. We ain't seen it since, until now.
3, 2, 1, Cracktivate.
Here we go, the third match of the first round, and oh, immediately there's a crack. Who is out? Lendon Nut is gone! Finally! That's what it means to all of us! Roll the Nut 2, the winner! Roll the Nut 2, the saviour of Nut Wars 6, has knocked out the traitorous Lendon Nut. And bye-bye, Lendon Nuts. We don't care about you. You're not going to be in another Nut Wars again. We can finally bury that. Anyway, it's time for our final match of the first round, where Fat Nut 5, winner of Nut Wars 4, takes on last year's runner-up, Nutshot.
From Tela, Honduras, and seeded number 6, Nutshot.
The runner-up of last year's Nut Wars was able to get the final seed, Seed 6, and the final automatic qualification spot for this year's Nut Wars with a 2-1 record. So let's see how Nutshot was able to qualify for this year. You could say that Nutshot's run to the Nut Wars 5 final is probably one of the most impressive we've ever seen in Nut Wars, defeating at the time reigning champions Fat Nut the 4th in the first round, followed by a semi-final victory against Nut Wars 3 champions Nutheart Rebirth. before losing to Roll the Nut 2 in the finals, but it still did enough for automatic qualification for this year.
From Nutley in America, and seeded number 4, Fat Nut 5.
The champion of Nut Wars 4 and the only Nuts to compete in every single Nut Wars series. Not since, bloody typo. Anyway, this Nut has been in all 5 previous Nut Wars competitions, with varying degrees of success. It is also the runner-up of Nut Wars 2, but that record, 5 wins and 4 defeats, does not look very good. And since Fat Nut has been in every single Nut Wars series, this is going to be a long one, but let's see how it got that 5-4 record. Since Fat Nut the 4th has been in every single Nut Wars, we have to go right back to the beginning with the first Nut Wars, when it was defeated by the Chip Little Nut in the first round. Being seeded number 4 for Nut Wars 2, it did pretty well, defeating Penna Soldado in the first round and beating Plain Nut in the semi-finals before losing to eventual Nut Wars 2 champions, the Bulls Bollocks, in the finals. Seeded 2 for Nut Wars 3, it was defeated by Mini Nut in the first round, another small nut, which could be one of its big weaknesses. Nut Wars 4 was seeded number 7 and went all the way to the top, with wins over Nutto Pain in the first round, a win against Rainbow Nut in the second round, and a win over reigning champions Nut Heart to win Nut Wars 4. Trying to defend the title though as Seed 1 is difficult, especially for Fat Nut the 4th, when it went up against Nutshot in the first round, only to lose in embarrassing fashion. 5 wins, 4 defeats, 9 battles. There is no nut that has competed more than Fat Nut 5.
3, 2, 1, Cracktivate.
So who is going to take the final spot in the semi-finals? Well, it's not going to be Fat Nut 5. They have lost again at the first round. And Nutshot goes through. So Nutshot claims the final spot in the semi-finals. The runner-up of last year has qualified. Sadly, it's an end of an era here, as Fat Nut 5 will not be competing in next year's Nut Wars. But Nutshot through for a chance of immortality. And speaking of immortality, while we get the round 2 draw sorted, let's go back up to Utensil-Man.
So we've had champions falling, left, right and centre. Just proving that maybe there's a new breed of nut around. Or maybe they just weren't good enough in the first place. It's time for the semi-finals. But who's gonna make it to the finals? And who will fall?
Well, in the next few minutes, we will find out which of the next 2 to fall. The semi-finals go as follows. Unseeded Nutbuster takes on the 7-2 record seed number 2 winner of Nut Wars 3, Nut Heart. And our second semi-final match is a rematch from last year's Nut Wars final, with Roll the Nut 2, seed number 1, taking on seed 6, Nut Wars 5 runner-up, Nutshot. But first, Nutbuster versus Nut Heart.
3, 2, 1, Cracktivate.
The first match of the Nut Wars 6 semi-final, and there are some cracks immediately. Oh, and who is it? I think it's Nut Heart. Nut Heart's still in for the moment. I don't think it's going to come back from that, though. Nut Heart has been defeated. Nutbuster through. That is a right shame for Nut Heart. The best nut we've ever seen in Nut Wars will end its career on a 7-3 record. With 1 Nut Wars championship, 1 Nut Wars runner-up, and 4 consecutive semi-finals under its now broken belt, Nut Heart's career is sadly over. But that is the past, and it's time to dictate the future. And who will be Nutbuster's opponent in the finals? It's a rematch from last year's Nut Wars final. The current champion of Nut Wars, Roll the Nut 2, takes on Nutshot.
3, 2, 1, Cracktivate.
The unseeded Nutbuster looks on to see who his opponent is going to be in the finals. There's the crack! But who is through? It's Roll the Nut 2! They've made it to the finals again! Roll the Nut 2 have made it to the finals again. They have equaled Nut Heart and the Bulls Bollocks record of 5 consecutive victories. Forget what I said about Nut Heart. If Roll the Nut 2 wins this final, they will be the first nut in Nut Wars history to not only win 2 Nut Wars championships, but 2 consecutive Nut Wars championships and 6 consecutive victories. This could be a record-breaking Nut Wars final right here. But before we get to it, let's see what Utensil-Man thinks.
we have two valiant challengers left. The current champion, Roll the Nut 2, and Nutbuster, the unseeded, possibly untested nut. But who is going to be victorious, and who will be the last victim of Nut Wars 6? I can't wait. Let's find out.
And here we are, the final of Nut Wars 6. Roll the Nut 2 has made it all the way here. Once again, the reigning champions looking to break so many records with just one more victory. The only nut standing in their way is the unseeded Nutbuster. Let's get straight into it. Let's see who's going to win.
3, 2, 1. Cracktivate.
It's the grand final here. Who's going to win? Crack 'em!
Oh, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Oh, another tough one, but go on, crack 'em. Do it! There we go! We have a winner, and who is it going to be? Oh, Roll the Nut 2 has been defeated! Nutbuster is your new Nut Wars champion! Nutbuster has had such an amazing run here in Nut Wars, beating a former runner-up of Nut Wars and 2 former Nut Wars champions to make it to the top of the mountain. Your new Nut Wars champion, and the nut that will carry on its legacy to Nut Wars 7 is the unseeded Nutbuster. What a shocking result that is. Utensil-Man, what do you think about it?
We have our new Nut Wars champion, the 6th Nut Wars champion in Nutbuster. But is it a blessing or a curse? Because next year, 7 more will try and take that championship off him. 7 new nuts will come along and try and dethrone the current king. And since we still have a 100% rate of champions never winning again, I don't see it going very far. Masterath Gaming, how did you enjoy the devastation and destruction of Nut Wars 6?
Well, we had 5 champions, you know, and they all got knocked out. So, yeah, Roll the Nut 2 did a really good job making it to the finals, but finally it's been dethroned by Nutbuster, who, for the first time, becoming a Nut Wars champion. I wasn't expecting for Nutbuster to win, and, well, as you can tell from my hand, it's pretty much red at this point. Hurts a bit. That was because of the final and one of the first round battles, which conveniently Nutbuster was also in. I think it's the chibi little nuts, I think, at that point. But yeah, so our winner is Nutbuster, who will be carrying on their legacy to the next Nut Wars next year, while the rest of them, they'll never be in another Nut Wars. So I guess we'll have to take out the trash.
And so, Nut Wars 6 has come to an end. And I don't care if people enjoyed it or not. I was just here for the fun. I do hope you don't have nightmares tonight. Because if you do, I'll be in there.
It's gotta be done.